We're here at the CarbonExpo Australasia. I'm speaking to Tom Luckock, who runs our climate change and clean energy practice from Beijing, China. Tom, welcome to Melbourne. You've been doing over 120 CDM, carbon offset projects, and you're here talking to the Australian carbon industry. What's your sort of key message to those in Australia about what is happening, the Asian Green Revolution out of China?
I think the main message is that there's a huge amount of activity in China in this space. I mean, very much right from the bottom in terms of the incentives to officials, to the regulations that are going in place, to the tax incentives, to the availability of cheap credit. There is a huge amount of activity and support for investment in this sector. We've already said, as you mentioned, China's got 80% of the CDM market, but more broadly than that, wind, solar, hydro, China really are pushing into this area. They want to be the world leaders.
Well, I think that, perhaps in Australia, we often hear that Australia shouldn't be the first to act, which blatantly, I guess, ignores many of the European and other countries, the 35 countries of price on carbon. But I think what may be of more interest is what's happening in Asia, particularly China. But this quite often, people would discount this. But is this real? I mean, is there a real green economy taking hold in China? And why is that?
Yes, definitely. There very much is a green economy taking hold in China. As I think was discussed earlier, I mean, China's missed the Industrial Revolution, it perhaps missed the IT revolution, but it doesn't want to miss the Green Revolution. So we see already 30% of the of PV comes out of the world's PV comes out of China. The next wind turbines, Goldwind, Dongfang, Sinovel, I think the next big wind turbine manufacturers will be out of China. The fifth largest wind developer is a Chinese company, and these companies want to move to the next step, and they're backed by they've got cheap labour advantages in China, but they're also backed by the Chinese banks, and we're increasingly seeing CDB, CAXM supporting these deals, supporting PV project developments into Europe, but also in Australia.
I mean, are there opportunities for Asian investors in this green economy, this Chinese green economy?
Yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities both ways. If you're looking at the inbound market, there's opportunities in perhaps wind is a bit of a saturated market at the moment, but solar is the next big market. The returns perhaps aren't quite there. Water on the adaptation side, hydro, a lot of opportunities in those markets. Flipping to the outbound side, I mean, I think there is opportunities to get access to debt, plus slightly cheaper turbines, but reliable turbines. Also, same with PV. There are opportunities to access these because, as we mentioned, these Chinese turbine manufacturers, they have global ambitions. They want to be, the next generations of Gamesas, Vestas, GE. They want Goldwind, Dongfang and Sinovel to be in the same sort of tier as those companies.
I mean, everybody's keenly awaiting is it the sixth five-year plan? And there's predictions that this will point towards a carbon price, perhaps even an emissions trading scheme in China within the next 5 years. Do you see any signs of that actually happening in practice?
Yeah, there's already 3 exchanges in China. There's an exchange in Tianjin, Beijing and Shanghai.
Carbon exchange?
Yeah, climate change exchange. What's being traded on these exchanges at the moment is mainly VERs, voluntary emissions, and also SO2, SOx and NOx, we call it. But expanding out of that, we've already seen the development of a small cap and trade up in Tianjin, and this is a sort of a bit of a pilot project. We know that CBEX has been charged with trying to look at developing a number of cap and trade schemes, and has actually been quite interested in the New South Wales greenhouse scheme as a bit of a potential model. And I think what we're starting to see already is there's one scheme, there's one cap and trade up and running. There'll probably be a number of other cap and trade or similar schemes also running. These will compete with each other, and then ultimately they'll probably choose the best of those schemes. So it's quite an entrepreneurial way of developing a very competitive and effective scheme.
the Asian or the Chinese green economy dragon is truly up and running.
It's definitely up and running. It's definitely up and running. You don't become the largest investor in in clean energy in the world without it being a real sector and a real place for investment.
Tom, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.